Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Growing up, my mom and I didn't have what most people would call a close relationship. Don't get me wrong. She was there, physically. She took care of my basic needs, made sure I was fed and clothed. But there was always a distance between us. She often commented that she had always hoped for a boy. When she looked at me, it seemed like she saw all the ways I wasn't what she wanted. I resembled my late father so much that it only seemed to add to her disappointment. She would make offhand remarks like, "If only I'd had a boy who looked like me," or, "It's strange how you take after him in everything." While she never outright said she didn't love me, her words left me feeling like I wasn't quite what she'd hoped for. I wanted to be loved by her, to feel that mother-daughter connection I saw in other families, but it always felt just out of reach. My father, on the other hand, adored me. He wasn't a wealthy man, but he had a refined taste in life's little luxuries. His wardrobe was full of bespoke suits and hand-picked silk ties. He loved his cufflinks and watches. He had this special Rolex watch which he said I will inherit when he's gone, and asked me to cherish it as it represents years of hard work and his accomplishments. After he passed away when I was only 11, that watch became one of the few tangible connections I had to him. It wasn't just a watch, it was a piece of him, a reminder of the man who loved me when it felt like no one else did. When I lost him, I was devastated. I didn't have any siblings to share the grief with, and my mom wasn't the warm, comforting presence I needed. Then, to my shock, she remarried less than 2 years later. Her new husband, Tom, was a decent man, at least it seemed at first. He was polite, kept to himself, and tried to make small talk with me, but we never bonded. What truly surprised me was how my mother changed after the wedding. She became obsessed with Tom's son, Derek, her new stepson. Derek was 2 years older than me. He had lost his mom at a young age, and I could understand why my mother might want to step in and be a positive influence in his life. But it didn't take long to see that she wasn't just trying to help him. She was replacing me in her mind. All the affection she had never shown me, all the energy she had withheld, she poured into Derek. She attended every single one of his baseball games, made his favorite dinners, and even planned elaborate birthday parties that I had never received growing up. She doted on him, constantly showering him with gifts and praise, even though he made it clear he couldn't stand her. Derek was ungrateful and entitled. He didn't want a new mother, and he didn't hide it. He ignored her efforts, rolled his eyes at her affection, and snapped at her if she asked too many questions. Despite this, my mom never gave up. She spent thousands of dollars on the latest gadgets, gaming consoles, and anything else he expressed even a mild interest in. When he started skipping classes and getting into trouble at school, she and Tom dismissed it, saying it must be trauma from losing his mom. They never punished him or held him accountable. Everything he did was excused, justified, and forgiven. Meanwhile, I watched from the sidelines, thinking, what about me? I lost my dad young too, but I don't act like a spoiled and entitled brat. As we got older, Derek only got worse. He barely graduated high school, and instead of going to college or getting a job, he decided he was going to make it big in cryptocurrency and stock trading. He claimed to have insider knowledge, a gift for reading the market. In reality, he was gambling. He made reckless investments, lost large sums of money, and ended up drowning in debt. But every time he screwed up, my mom was there to pick up the pieces. She and Tom lived paycheck to paycheck, yet somehow they always found a way to bail him out. They sacrificed their savings, went without vacations, and even postponed medical procedures just so Derek could have another chance at his dream. Then one day, I went to my jewelry box to retrieve my dad's watch. I wanted to wear it that day, as it was the anniversary of his passing. When I opened the box, the watch wasn't there. I searched my entire room, hoping I had just misplaced it, but it was nowhere to be found. My dad's watch was the one thing I never lost track of. It was too important. I went to my mom and asked if she had seen it. Her face betrayed her guilt. At first, she played dumb, claiming I must have misplaced it. When I insisted that I hadn't, she grew defensive. "Are you accusing me of stealing it?" she asked. "Of course I didn't take it. Maybe you just don't remember where you put it." I refused to let it go. I told her that if it didn't turn up, I would have to file a police report. That's when she finally broke. She admitted that she had taken the watch and sold it. Her explanation? Derek had gotten into trouble again. This time, he had lost a fortune on a bad investment and owed money to people who weren't exactly forgiving. My mom, in her desperation to keep him out of trouble, had taken the watch and pawned it. She begged me not to report it. She promised she would pay me back, though I knew that was impossible since she didn't have a job and Tom's income barely covered their bills. "You can't call the police on your own mother," she pleaded. "Please, I'll make it right, I swear." I was heartbroken. That watch was one of the last pieces of my father I had left, and she had sold it for Derek's mistakes. I cried, but I let it go for the moment. I didn't file a police report. I thought it was over. But then a week later, I came home early from work and overheard my mom on the phone. "Good thing I stepped in," she was saying. "If I hadn't taken the blame, Derek could have gotten into serious trouble." I froze. She wasn't the one who took the watch. Derek had stolen it, and she had covered for him. She had lied to me to protect him yet again. That was the last straw. I went straight to the police and filed the report. When the pawn shop receipt traced back to Derek, he was charged with theft. My grandparents, my father's parents, were furious when they heard the story. They stepped in and helped me get the watch back from the pawn shop. They even offered me a place to live, away from the toxic environment of my mom's house. My mother, on the other hand, was furious. She called me nonstop, leaving voicemails filled with anger and accusations. "How could you do this to your family?" she'd demand. "You ruined Derek's life. You've destroyed everything." To her, it didn't matter that Derek had stolen the watch. It didn't matter that she'd lied to me, or that I was only trying to protect something irreplaceable. She was only focused on the consequences for Derek, on the trouble he was in now because of my actions. She kept saying I should have let it go, but I couldn't. I had let too much go already. I had kept quiet for too long, and if I stayed quiet this time, I would have lost a piece of my father forever. Now, I'm seriously considering moving in with my grandparents and starting fresh. But part of me still wonders, am I the a-hole for reporting Derek and finally standing up for myself? I think OP is absolutely not the a-hole. OP's mother and stepbrother betrayed OP in the worst way. She not only took something precious, but then lied to OP's face and tried to manipulate OP into dropping it. OP's stepbrother got what he deserved. He made the choice to steal the watch, and now he's facing the consequences. It's heartbreaking that OP's mom can't see how deeply she's hurt OP. But at the end of the day, OP did what she had to do to protect her father's memory. I'm happy OP was able to get the watch back. You shouldn't have to let people walk all over you, even if they're family. And now let's hear the community's opinion. You're not the a-hole. The watch was yours, a deeply meaningful memento of your father, and your stepbrother had no right to take it. Your mother choosing to lie and protect him is infuriating. She could have taken responsibility for her role in all of this, but instead, she made it about how you've ruined everything. Derek is an adult. He stole something valuable, and now he's dealing with the fallout. You shouldn't have to sacrifice something so important just to keep the peace in a family that clearly doesn't value you in the same way. You did what was necessary to get the watch back, and I don't blame you one bit. You're not in the wrong here. The watch wasn't just a possession. It was one of the few pieces of your father you had left. Your stepbrother's theft wasn't a minor mistake. It was a violation of trust and a blatant disregard for your feelings. Your mother's behavior is even worse. She put his interests above yours and tried to gaslight you into dropping it. By standing up for yourself, you showed them that you're not willing to let them devalue your father's memory. Family or not, they need to learn that actions have consequences. You handled this with more grace than many people would have in your situation. Not the a-hole. Your mother's decision to cover for your stepbrother's theft is deeply troubling. She not only prioritized him over you, but she also expected you to stay silent while they disrespected something so meaningful. That watch represented your father's legacy, and you had every right to fight for it. Your stepbrother is not a child anymore. He made a choice, and now he has to deal with the repercussions. I'm sorry your mother can't see that, but you did the right thing. Stand your ground, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what's important to you. I, female 25, work in AI, tech, and a lot of my friends and I from my college program and work are fortunately well off. One of my friends, female 25, hosts these quarterly black tie galas that are honestly super cool because she's great at planning events. She kept begging me to bring a date to her February gala, and was even sending me the social medias of a bunch of guys from college and this company we interned at. Honestly, I never really vibed with any of the guys from school because I was hyper-focused on studying, and I never really clicked with them. I go to this ice cream shop near me a lot, and there's a cute guy who runs the shop. I've been trying to get out of my shell a little more, so I finally asked him for his number and asked him if he would like to go to my friend's party with me after we texted for a bit. I told my friend that I had a surprise date, so she would get off my back. At the party, when he introduced himself, she seemed kind of put off, and I feel a little bad for him too because he seemed a bit awkward, but I think he warmed up as the night went on. He texted me afterwards and said he had a good time, although it could be that he was just trying to be polite to me. After the party, my friend told me that I was being disrespectful to the time and energy she put into planning by picking up random guys off the street to go with me to her gala. She also said that I was rude to my date by bringing him there because he wasn't successful as everyone else, and obviously felt uncomfortable and ashamed. I kind of apologized to her reflectively because I felt bad for making her feel disrespected. However, I'm starting to feel like her reaction was pretty over the top and snobby. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You asked the guy because you were interested in him, not because of his social status. Your friend is an insufferable snob. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry to break it to you, but your friend sounds like an elitist piece of work. She begged you to bring a date, so you brought a date. Now she's upset he wasn't good enough? A fellow human being is somehow unqualified to attend a party because it's full of people who are more successful. That's messed up. I do hope you gave him a heads up on what kind of party it was going to be, so he wouldn't feel uncomfortable if he's not into fancy tech galas. But no, not the a-hole by a long shot. Not the a-hole. Your friend is a snob. I certainly hope her life continues to be successful. It would be pretty embarrassing to be her if she hits a bump in the road. My 31 male dad cheated on my mom with our neighbor and my mom's best friend when I was about 7 years old. They insist on lying that they didn't know each other before their previous respective marriages ended. My dad lied about his earnings, so my mom got the barest minimum possible child support. He asked for my college class schedule so he could visit and have lunch with me, but turned around and gave it to his lawyer to prove I was over 18 and not enrolled full-time to end support. All this to say, my dad is hardly blameless, but he is still my dad. We played hockey every week together in the same beer league, and I remember that he never missed a game, event when I was a kid. He'd drive 2 hours round trip to pick my little sister and I up from school, to only drive us back to my mom's a couple hours later. His wife, to put it simply, I despise her. She hasn't worked since she was 16, doesn't volunteer, just sits around watching Oprah or whatever. About 8 years ago, my then girlfriend and I broke up and I was going to be homeless. My dad let me move into their condo. I was on a futon in his office, but I was grateful. I paid market rent on time every month. His wife never made me feel welcome. I could work a double shift at the hospital. I did patient transport, pass out at 6 a.m., and she would be vacuuming by 7:30 a.m. If I came home after an afternoon shift, usually around 6 p.m., she would have made dinner for the two of them and not made enough for me to have leftovers. My dad had unrealistic expectations of how quickly I would move out. Most places in my area, you have about 3-month waiting period between applying for the apartment and actually moving in. But he seemed to think it would only take a couple weeks. To be clear, when I moved in, he told me I could stay as long as I needed. To the point, my now fiancé and I are getting married. I do not under any circumstances want his wife there. I put up with her at hockey, holidays, family barbecues, etc. because she makes him happy. But I think I should be allowed this selfish "it's my wedding day" moment. I invited my dad out to breakfast to let him know that the invitation would only be addressed to him, that she was not invited. He blew up, saying he couldn't believe it. And how will it look if he comes without her? I stood firm and reiterated the decision is final. A bunch of guys from the hockey team are invited, as well as his brother and kids, my uncle and cousins. So it's not as if he will have no one he knows there. He told another guy on the team about it, and he called me the a-hole. That he spends time with his mother's aggressive alcoholic boyfriend to make her happy, and insinuated I should do the same. In my opinion, it's selfish and disrespectful of my dad to ask me to have someone I so greatly dislike at my wedding. He says I'm disrespectful because she helped raise me, and this puts him in a bad position. So am I the a-hole? The only one I feel sorry for is your mom. First, he cheats, then uses you to screw your mother again on child support, and you think that is okay? He did not support you and your sister, and probably made your mom have to work twice as hard to support you two. That is disgusting, and I don't care how long ago it was. The fact that you think it's no big deal also is disgusting. You are not the a-hole for not wanting your home-wrecking stepmom there. You say he's still my dad, but that's the point. He cheated, just like she did, and she owes you nothing. He lied about the affair, finances, spending time with you. He never stood up to her mistreatment of you. He's still your father, but you're still his son. You can invite anyone you want, but married couples are invited together, so don't be surprised if he chooses not to attend. Not the a-hole. It's your wedding and you have a right to invite who you want. You did a right thing by explaining it to your dad and was open about it. Other people may reach different conclusions in their lives, but that does not mean you have to do the same, or that you are an a-hole if you choose differently.